Warm up the grill, grab a beverage, and paint your face.
What is that?
I painted my face.
You painted your face?
Yeah.
This is Danny and Dusty on Wildcard Week.
Injured? Don't trust just anyone to something so personal. Call George McCoy at Warren Allen. Online at warrenallen.com.
Danny and Dusty on 1080.
Why?
Well, you know, support the team.
The Fan.
Good afternoon! Happy Tuesday to you.
What's up?
Will Ortner's here. No Danny Meringue. Jeff Rust is here with us with his Charles Entertainment Cheese shirt on today. The only grown-ass man that I know who wears a Chuck E. Cheese shirt.
Hey, he's my neighbor.
Excuse me, it is his full government name. Charles Entertainment Cheese.
Charles Entertainment Cheese?
That makes it okay for a grown-up.
How you doing, Russ?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Will Ortner, you good over there?
I'm still laughing about Charles Entertainment Cheese. I didn't know you were such a big fan of my neighbor. I had no idea.
You live next to a Chuck E. Cheese?
I do live, I live adjacent to a Chuck E. Cheese.
All right. So kitty corner, like 500 yards or more.
Oh, it's a good couple football fields. It would take me about 8 minutes to walk over there.
Okay. 8-minute walk. Have you ever been to Chuck E. Cheese?
When I was a child.
No, like as an adult, being that close, have you ever been like, you know what I want? A $15 beer and subpar cheese and
Go eat an edible and get wilded out by the animatronic
play
band.
whack-a-mole.
No. The way that I look.
Wait, now
I
it
should
sounds
be
like a
nowhere
good Tuesday
near.
night.
Right. No, it doesn't.
No.
Don't go to Chuck E. Cheese as an adult unless you have children.
All right. Fair enough.
Stay far away.
Yeah. I have dodged that bullet. I think my children have been to Chuck E. Cheese 3 times. I have been none.
Smart man.
Yeah. I've avoided all 3.
Yeah. I'm not sure that we've been there with our youngest yet.
Yeah.
Because when COVID hit, she was 3.
Yeah, you
and a
didn't
half,
want to get in that
basically.
ball pit.
Right?
Not during COVID times.
Yeah.
When does the age limit stop on Chuck E. Cheese birthdays? Is it like, I feel like
74.
I remember. Nice, 74. See, I feel like around like 4th or 5th
You
grade.
break a hip when you get in the ball pit.
That's when you start going to other places. 4th or 5th grade, I feel like that's when the birthdays were like, let's find somewhere different to go. Let's go to a Big Al's, a Dave and Buster's type.
Yeah, kids are different though, man. Like I think kids are different now. Like Chuck E. Cheese doesn't even have the allure that it once had.
Because now you got like the trampoline joints.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, the Defy. What is it?
Defy, I think.
Yeah.
And you got like the indoor skydiving
Sky
places
high.
too.
I mean,
Kids
you
going
call
to
them
skydiving?
you call them trampoline places. I call them compound fracture factories.
Yes, there we go. Exactly. There's a reason they have you sign a waiver before you go in.
I had a buddy who was an ambulance driver who's like, dude, we just park out like, I don't know, in the parking lot because we're going to end up there, eventually.
Right.
And it's not because of the kids. Kids are bendy.
It's an adult. It's always the dad
Absolutely.
who is way too into it that gets hurt.
Yeah, my 7-year-old, she's big on to like watching fail videos on YouTube lately.
Yeah.
And yeah, so a lot of them come up and it's just grown-ups doing absolutely some of the most stupid ass you could ever seen. Like, why are you people trying to ride a hoverboard indoors? And yeah, it's like really, I could have told you this would happen before you got on there.
I remember like when it used to be called Sky High, right?
Yeah.
That place closed down. But back when it was that, like right out of college, it opened up, and like me and a few of my buddies, like we went there, and like we were in shape. I walk into that place now, and I'm like, nope. That is, I know my body. I am not going to risk it. I will end up with a dislocated shoulder. Like something's going to happen. It won't be good. And then I just watch my kids just like full send. And I'm like, God, those were the days.
They don't care at all. There's going to be some kind of scorpion and they'll be fine.
Yeah. Like
There'll be no issues. They'll
That's
laugh.
right.
They'll get up and laugh about it. Maybe if someone bonks heads, they'll have a little bit of tears. But that's it.
Yeah. Just like, I don't know how they do it, how they can bounce back so quick. I remember those days. I yearn for those days.
I don't.
They are so far in the rearview mirror.
I don't yearn for those days at all. I was a big chubby kid. Stuff wasn't going well for me.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to be fun. I'll tell you what, though, as a PE teacher now, because I do educate the youngs when I'm not here. There is nothing funnier than watching the kids try and figure out the big exercise balls.
Yeah.
And they always get in trouble because you can't just run and jump on it. But I always let them do it first, and then I get them in trouble.
Jeez.
What? They don't get hurt.
You just watch them go, and then you're like, all right, hey.
Well, you can see the look in the 5-year-old's eye and know, like, he's at the first chance he gets, he's going to run and jump on top of that exercise ball like Superman.
Yep.
He's going to fall, hit the ground. Bye-bye. I'll have to send him to the nurse, and then he'll have to sit out for a little bit, and then he can come back in.
I have a few buddies that are like PE teachers, high school, middle school, elementary school PE teachers. And the way that they talk about like some of the injuries that happen, it's like when you open up the floodgates to kid get hurt, goes and says, I need ice. And then how many kids follow up like, I need ice. He's like, there's times where you're like, do you really need ice?
No.
And the first one you want to fight off for as long as they can. But then there's some of those undeniable ones where you're like, yeah, you're going to need some ice for that one.
You need some ice. I've also, the kids are getting smart. They have learned that if you say you have a headache because you hit your head, they automatically get to go to the nurse.
Yeah, you can't mess around with the concussions.
Can't mess around with a concussion. Now,
can't do that.
Can a 5-year-old give themselves a concussion? Probably not. But if you say your head hurts to me as a substitute, straight to the nurse. I'm not messing around with that.
Don't do that.
I'm not getting a fine. I'm not getting a call from, some angry parent.
No.
Hey, my kid said they have a headache. Nope, straight to the nurse.
You out.
I sent like 7 kids to the nurse one day because of that.
Meanwhile,
same class.
When I was growing up, like I vividly remember like being at my my preschool. It was at the all the old heads will know this one, the old Tannisbourne Mall. They used to have a learning tree inside the mall.
They had the movie theater in there.
Yeah,
that's where the Chang's Mongolian Grill was.
Sunshine Pizza was in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had like a bakery. Well, there's also my preschool, and they used to have like this viewing area where you could look at the playground. And I remember like playing football. It's like one of my earliest memories. Mm-hmm. And barreling my head down, and I ran into a cement wall. And I remember like laying on the ground, like looking up and being like,
so that's what a concussion feels like.
Like just seeing like my first time ever seeing stars. And then I remember like as the teachers were like dragging me back into like where the school area was, there was like these old guys who were watching and they were just laughing. And I remember just feeling that shame of like, yeah, they're laughing at me right now. And that is one of my earliest memories that I have as a kid. But also how I know I wasn't concussed. Because I wouldn't remember that. I remembered it.
Don't think that's how that works.
I remember seeing the stars and them just dragging me. And I was just like, I finished the day out of school. It was a good day of school. Like, times have changed.
Dusty, what's 3 + 3? 7.
Yeah, I probably would have said that anyway.
That's true. Can you even figure out if a 5-year-old has a concussion?
I don't think there is like, I don't know, just dilated pupils maybe.
That's why I send them to the experts. That's why they go to the nurse.
Get out of here.
Telling you, dude. In a 35-minute PE class, 7 kids.
Yeah. Well,
all went to the nurse. They all came up. I don't even think half of them hit their head. Just, Mr. Ortner, my head hurts. Nurse. So that's the nurse's problem. That's not my problem. I'm not determining if you can stay in school or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, this is a good point on the Vancouver Ford text line. 503-864-6326. That's still concussed, Dusty. Yep. Still there.
Still concussed.
Brains are rattled. Brains are rattled.
It's like when you used to play like Madden 05 and they'd be like, Peyton Manning concussion, out 2 quarters.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you used to deal with it back then.
Like recess too. I remember on recess there was, they used to call, I don't know what they call it now. I don't remember what we changed the name to. No, smear the,
Oh.
Yeah. They changed
that word that rhymes with fear.
Yeah.
Yes.
They changed and I remember there was, I'll never forget, Mr. Keller, 6th grade teacher. Like, so there were kids who were like, hey, let's play that. And he was like, whoa, hey, you guys. And we were like, oh man, we can't play that game anymore. He's like, you guys cannot call it that anymore. Like it was like, no, you guys can still batter your heads into each other. That is okay.
We just got to call it by a different name.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, which is fair. Like that was totally fair.
Absolutely.
But the main concern for us was like, we don't care what this game is called. Like we didn't even know what that meant.
You don't know at that age.
We had no idea. But it was like, you guys cannot call it that anymore. We're like, oh, we thought you were going to tell us we can't play anymore. We'll call this game whatever we want.
Wait, were you guys allowed to tackle
Oh, absolutely.
at recess?
Yes.
Yeah, that's long gone.
Yeah, that's gone.
That was
Like,
gone
those are
by the time I was a
Those
kid.
are the times are different. The times are different. We also used to play, the game Peg, right?
Peg.
Yeah, but we used to play with wall ball. So you'd play wall ball, and if you lost that wall ball, it wasn't just that you lost and you had to go get in the back of the line. You had to go and you had to stand against the wall, and whoever beat you just got to hum that ball right at you.
That sounds like welts in ping pong.
Yeah, that's right. The same kind of thing.
Yeah, you're not allowed to
They
play
got
that.
to just peg you with the ball.
They don't even play.
Them's the rules. Like, not only did you, like, we were, and this sounds like I'm like, it was the ultimate, like, you lose, you're not getting the participation trophy. You're going to get, you lost and you got shamed on my playground. It was a different time back then.
No, there's
None of that is happening anymore.
None of the games anymore are called dodgeball. Now they all have dodgeball elements to them,
Yeah.
but they're not dodgeball. Also, softer balls. It is funny watching like probably second and third graders play the new. So the new version that I always play is Dr. Tag, right? Because it involves the scooters. So the way this game,
You want to talk about broken fingers?
dude, the way that this game works is you have the softer dodgeballs, like little Nerf balls, but then once you get hit, you have to have the doctor. The doctor comes and saves you. So the game is never ending. You just keep going, right? But same rule, you can't cross that midcourt line. The amount of second and third graders that I've seen that have thrown a ball and then just stared with their head across the line and get absolutely drilled with the Nerf ball.
Yeah.
It's staggering. So I can only imagine, because I'm sure that when you were a second and third grader, probably pretty similar. When I was a second and third grader, probably pretty similar. Throw the ball, stare. Imagine what would happen to those kids with the rubber balls.
Yeah.
What you had to go through in your day. They cry when the Nerf ball hits them now. What would happen with the rubber ball?
Then you just get all of the rubber ball. Like I remember there was a time where we started transitioning towards the foam Nerf balls, but every now and then, like the teacher would be like, I would like when I thought of it at the time, it was like, hey, all right, teacher's having a good day. He's gonna let us play with the rubber balls. Looking back on it now, I'm thinking that PE teacher is probably having a bad day and was like, you know what'll cheer me up? Rubber ball dodgeball. That's what's going to cheer me up because that sound, that thud, and then the boing, like there's a little poing to it, bouncing off kids, probably made him chug. And I remember there were a few of them where you'd look over and you'd be like, am I in trouble for this? And you'd be like, oh no, you can't do that. No headshots. You're still in. No headshots.
Dude, hey, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes the teams are unfair in dodgeball.
Yeah.
And the kids that annoy me or make me mad, sometimes they end up on the worst team.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Butts up. That's what the wall ball game was. Some people called it peg because you'd peg the person with the ball. Others called it butts up.
Up.
Yeah. Where you you lose that wall ball. That thing was humming.
See, we played wall ball, but there was no butts up.
Well, no, it's not. It's just a punishment for losing. If we're being quite honest, all butts up was a punishment for losing wall ball.
It was
Then you got your welt on your back and to sit in the back of the line until that thing, and then you got your revenge later.
So it was really just an excuse for kids to hit other kids without getting in trouble.
Yeah. Basically.
I got kicked out of a recess because I kind of played a version of that.
Did you? See, it took a lot to stand on the wall at recess, mainly 4-letter words.
Not a 4-letter word. Someone scored a basket on me in basketball, so I took the ball and I threw it at their face.
Well, that might do it too.
Well, it sounds like that was fair game as long as you were playing butts up, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, well, as long as they are against a wall, facing that wall, and not looking at you when you throw the ball at them, all's fair.
Oh, he was looking.
Oh, man.
Caught it right in the teeth.
Yeah. Gosh. I think we changed the name of the football game to Last Man Standing. I think was
Last Man Standing.
Yeah, whoever had the ball. Last man standing.
I don't know what they play at recess anymore. Because, like, every once in a while, I'll make my way out there just to, sometimes, look.
By the way, substitute teacher Will Ortner, if you did not know.
Right.
Substitute teacher Will Ortner.
Yeah, I'm not just going out to recesses for the fun of it.
Yeah, that is very creepy. Who's the large man with the beard?
Who's the bald guy that just hangs out at recess?
Yeah, go get him, Johnny.
500 time. Why is he always all-time QB? No, I'll make my way out there just, sometimes light staff or whatever. Mm-hmm. None of the games they play make sense to me. Can't figure it out.
Really?
They're not really playing. They're just running around.
All right. I got to get to this is a question that I have because my kid just turned 7 last Friday. We had his birthday. He's really into Pokemon now.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Does anybody know how to actually play the game Pokemon with the cards?
No.
Does anybody?
No.
Like that's a blanket question. Please, if you do and you can explain it to me, you can text. But I was like, he's got all these cards now from Christmas and his birthday because he's really into it. And holy smokes, I got in the wrong game because we're looking up some of these cards.
You can make a lot of money.
He's got... Like his first pack, he had like a card that's worth $400. He's got multiple cards over $100. Like I'm sitting there going, what in the world is Gosh, and meanwhile, I've got 8 boxes worth of worthless baseball cards from the 80s and 90s sitting in my garage. And my wife's like, are we going to get rid of these? I'm like, hey, no, we got to hold on to them. Eventually.
There's a Jeff Kent rookie card in there. That's going to be big.
That was my retirement. I believe if we hold on to them long enough, our kids can retire off of those cards that we have there. Eventually, they will be worth something. We just got to hold on to them for long enough. So everybody else, get rid of your cards. But he's got cards that are all worth like $400 now. Yeah. I don't know if anybody plays the game.
I don't think there is a game. Like Yu-Gi-Oh! I think there's a game to it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I never got into
idea
Yu-Gi-Oh!
What that means.
It's same idea.
Okay.
Anime, Japanese card game.
All right.
Same idea. Okay. I never got into it, but I like the Vancouver Ford text line on here. It said keep all the Charizard cards. I think there's a couple of Charizard cards that are worth like millions of dollars.
So we were talking about this at Christmas with my in-laws, and my brother-in-law was there, and like he was super like I missed Pokemon altogether. I think I lived like too far 90s. In the country.
It's late.
And
90s.
I was like, I was a little like there were kids that I knew that were into it. Like once I got to middle school, and I was like, you lived in a neighborhood. None of the kids in my elementary school were into it. So I never got into it, but my brother-in-law did. He's a little bit younger. And so he's talking with Bennett, and he's like, I got, 3, I think he said like holographic Charizards from whatever from 1999. He goes, there's somewhere in our binders out there. And I looked it up, and the last one sold for like $9,000, and he's got 3 of them. And like we were all looking at each other like, all of a sudden we need to go out and find in all this storage that my in-laws have, we need to find these cards.
All of a sudden you're big time. So the most expensive Pokemon card ever sold is a Pikachu Illustrator.
Sure.
$1.275 million.
That's incredible. I don't know what that means.
Oh, he might have sold it later for $4 million. Yeah. Pokemon cards, good investment?
I don't know.
Pokemon cards
going that way right now.
Pokemon cards, the new Bitcoin.
Yep. All right. All right. Oh man. Okay. Well, we got a lot of text coming in on the Vancouver Ford text line. We got some sports that we'll get to today too.
I appreciate the guy who explained butts up to me. Like I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you were pretty lost on what butts up was.
No,
we got it.
Well aware. I just played heads up.
All right. It's good to know that nobody plays that game, so I don't have to figure out how to do it. All right. We got a lot of NFL news notes. We have another firing in the NFL today. Mike Vrabel, he gone, of the Tennessee Titans. That is a huge miscalculation by the Tennessee Titans, in my opinion.
Yep.
We'll discuss that, plus another big injury heading into Super Wildcard Weekend. But where we got to start this bad boy off is the national title game. Michigan ends it with an exclamation point. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
I'm Victor Zaragoza with traffic.
Hey, it's Suk. Vulcan Design and Construction helped me
to this while you work out. But you're a man of mystery at this point, Will.
It's a lot of what have I heard recently, and then it just kind of gets thrown on there, and then it's a random shuffle.
All right.
Marvin Gaye was yesterday.
We have a new national champion in college football. The Michigan Wolverines knocked off the Washington Huskies 34-13 in a game that it had its moments, but where it was tight, but Michigan dominated that football game from start to finish. And the team that was undefeated had a chip on their shoulder. Their schedule wasn't tough enough. Their coach had been suspended 2 different times. They had stolen signs. At the end of the day, Michigan ended up being the best team in all of college football.
Well, and I texted you this, and I know we predicted UW to win this game, and I think a lot of people that predicted UW thought the same thing. Michael Penix was going to be able to overcome the flaws in this UW team, right? Michigan was the better team, but Michael Penix the greater player, so therefore they would come through and win. When you looked at this game, and we talked about it yesterday, if UW was going to struggle, it was going to be because Michigan got pressure on Michael Penix and made him normal, made him human.
Yep.
And the defensive line from Michigan, all the way from Mason Graham, Chris Jenkins, just blew up the center of that Husky offensive line and got after Penix, and he was never comfortable in the pocket. And that's why you saw so many missed throws all game long on throws that he hadn't missed all year. And that was why Michigan was able to win this game. They got pressure from their D-line, and Penix had to get rid of the ball before he wanted to, and he wasn't able to look downfield because he was worried about getting hit. And the minute that happened, the entire game was over. It was in Michigan's hands.
That was my key to the game, right? Where if I said if this game goes sideways for Washington, it is because, one, J.J. McCarthy does not have to win the game.
He didn't.
They absolutely punished Washington up front. The linebackers were on their heels early in the game because they were kind of worried of the balance that Michigan poses to you in the attack. One thing right out of the gate that was abundantly clear was the Michigan Wolverines were going to run off that left tackle all game long.
Yep, that duo scheme.
They went straight at Braylon Trice. They went to that left side, and the first series, that's all they did. They pounded the ball to the left, and then boom, 41-yard touchdown by Dylan Edwards, and that got the kind of avalanche started. You saw that they were on the 46-yard Edwards touchdown, the second touchdown of the game. They were setting up to go left. Linebackers flowed, got out of that lane, and then boom, he cuts it back, and there was nobody there. Okay? It was a clinic up front from Michigan's offensive line. It was. Washington did adjust, and I give them a ton of credit because you can fold up the cards and you can push it and say, this game ain't going our way. They fought back, and there's always kind of been this never quit mentality from the Washington Huskies because you have the best quarterback in the country. You have one of the best quarterbacks in the country.
Right.
You have the best receiving core in the country. They will keep you in a game, and they can close that gap for you. What Michigan was able to do in the trenches, it was like a wet dream for Jim Harbaugh. That is exactly how he wanted to win that football game. And they did not need J.J. McCarthy to throw the football. 8 passing attempts in the first half was too much for J.J. McCarthy.
Right. The one drive where they go 3 and out, J.J. McCarthy threw the ball 2 times. What they were doing, it was a clinic on offensive line play because when you have a defensive lineman like Braylon Trice, the best way to neutralize him is to run at him. Make him make the wrong choice. So the way that duo play works is they are trying to run that ball off tackle at Braylon Trice, the defensive end for UW. They are going to let Braylon choose which side he wants to be on. The tackle or the guard, whoever he is lined up against, is going to fit him square. If Braylon wants to go inside, he's going to block him down inside. They will run to the outside. If Braylon wants to run and fill to the outside, he will fill to the outside and they will run inside. All that Edwards was doing was basically letting Braylon choose where he wanted to be wrong.
Yep.
Did he want to be wrong inside or did he want to be wrong outside? And the minute that Braylon would choose, Edwards would go the opposite way. And the eye discipline early in the game.
It's simple, but it's very hard to do.
Right. But when you have such a good player on the defensive line like that, let him be wrong. Let him choose the wrong choice. He can't be right. He can't play both gaps because if he tries to, he's going to get knocked completely off the ball by that Michigan offensive line. And so what they did is, hey, pick. Do you want to go inside? Do you want to go outside? And then we're going to have our running back read off that and kill you. And the eye discipline from UW's linebacking core was horrific in that first quarter. The reason those runs were big, initially they were stopped. Trice would pick his side, Edwards would go opposite, everyone would fill inside where Edwards was going. Edwards would see that, he'd take a jump cut, go to the outside, and then he was gone. They did not play gap sound football, and Edwards made them pay because he found where the open gap was. It was a clinic.
It was a clinic up front, and they bullied them for 303 yards. You saw the graphic put up that, 134 was the average yards per game that Washington's defense was giving up. They got that in the first quarter and a half of that football game.
174 rushing yards in one quarter.
It was incredible. It was a clinic that the Michigan Wolverines put on. But that wasn't the whole story because Washington, they had their chances. And as good as Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards and J.J. McCarthy were at running the football, the Washington Huskies still had a shot in that game. Yeah. And this one's going to sting for a really long time because of missed opportunities and not missed calls. We'll get to that after Rust with SportsCenter.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a SportsCenter update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by Stanford's. The classic American steakhouse has exactly what you've been craving. Visit them in Clackamas, Tanasbourne, or online at stanfords.com. First on The Fan, with college football in the rearview mirror, the football focus now solely on the NFL. Black Tuesday in the league, and the Titans have fired head coach Mike Vrabel after 6 seasons. He led Tennessee to winning records in each of his first 4 years, including 3 playoff berths and Coach of the Year honors for 2021, but he finished under 500 each of the last 2 seasons. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin says linebacker TJ Watt is out Sunday at the Bills due to a knee injury suffered Saturday against the Ravens. Tomlin also said Mason Rudolph will start under center after leading the team to 3 consecutive wins. In the final AP Top 25 ranking of the season, Oregon finishes tied for 6th with Florida State. Michigan, Washington, Texas, Georgia, and Alabama are your top 5. Arizona finishes at number 11, and Oregon State falls out of the rankings altogether. The Trailblazers back on the court this afternoon, facing the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. 4:30 tip on Root Sports Plus. Matisse Thybulle, Jabari Walker, both questionable. DeAndre Ayton is doubtful. Blazers are 12.5-point dogs. An MRI on Pacers guard Tyrese Halliburton showed a left hamstring strain. Halliburton will be reevaluated following Indiana's upcoming road trip, which wraps up January 21st in Phoenix. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get to the Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook, powered by BetMGM, for all of the pro football postseason action. Visit SpiritMountain.com.
Go deeper on the Trailblazers. The Rose Garden Report with host Sean Hyken. Download the Rose Garden Report on the free Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Retired or retiring soon? How much money do you need to live comfortably? Retirement Planners of America is here for you. Would you like to have financial peace of mind? Here's how. Step 1, find out the amount of money you'll need to retire. Step 2, have a plan to get there. Step 3, make sure that plan can take advantage of market gains but protect you from market losses. Discover how to do all 3 with a free
Oppan Gangnam Style. This is a wild card week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
All right, Michigan tramples all over Washington in the college football championship game last night, 34-31. But that game was a lot closer than the final score would indicate. Although Michigan did control that football game, it always felt like they were in control of it. Washington had their opportunities, and Kalen DeBoer after the game, he talked about the missed opportunities that came in that game.
We had some self-inflicted wounds that we did to ourselves, some penalties, some plays that we are usually going to be making. We just didn't quite make them. It's not like anyone's not trying. I mean, they're giving everything they had. I could see it. And could tell in the locker room that they left it all out there just by the pain that they're going through. And, that's, again, there's a piece that where Michigan did some things as well. Obviously a very good football team.
It's not every penalty that matters. It's kind of when those penalties matter as well. And I think a lot of those, false starts or the holding calls, they came in those critical moments in those critical times. And when he says those self-inflicted wounds, he mentions penalties. There's that one holding penalty on the big completion to Odunze that all Washington fans are upset about.
It was a rough day for that right tackle.
It was, but at the same token, you sit there and you look at it and you go, was it holding? He was outside of his frame. You saw the yank down. It looked worse in live than it was on the video replay because it looked like he reached outside of his frame. He jerked down. The player kind of turned and he sold it.
He also shoved him from the back too.
Yeah.
Could have got a block in the back as well.
But in the flow of the game, we hadn't seen a lot of those. But again, I'll go back to in real time, it looked a whole lot worse than it was.
Right.
And it's a call that them's the breaks. It's holding. There's holding on literally every single play.
Right. But it's also a call that's going to get called every time. As an offensive lineman, you're taught to hold in tight. When you're run blocking, you want to pull the guy into you so that you can hold him so no one can see it. Because if you're holding inside that framework, right on the outside, basically your armpits down to the bottom of your pecs, right?
Yep.
If you're holding in there, they're never going to call that. Because they're never going to be able to see it. The minute your arm gets extended, it's the same thing with pass interference from an offensive player. The minute the wide receiver extends their arm, everybody can see it. It's obvious. Yep. It doesn't matter whether it was a good hold or a worthy hold or not. It's the same thing with the holding penalty that he got called for later because he got off late on the snap, right? Mm-hmm. On that fourth down when they finally get a defensive PI call and it gets negated because the same right tackle got off the ball late. Yep. And what did he do? He threw his arm out there and he wasn't moving his feet the way he needed to be moving his feet. And it's going to get called every time. When you're an offensive lineman, you are taught to never extend your arms. The minute you extend your arms, if you have any jersey grab, any cloth at all, it's going to get called.
Yep.
I hate when teams blame officials and penalties. The officials weren't out to get UW. They're not out to get Michigan. Actually, if they were out to get any team, it would be Michigan. You think the NCAA wants America's team to win after 8 games of suspension for your head coach?
America's team.
They don't want Michigan to win. They don't want America's team to win. They would have wanted UW. That game wasn't sold.
And this is cheap. This is the thing. There were holding calls, and I know the screenshots are going on like, oh, look at what Michigan was getting away with. That's college football. That is football, period, right? Instead of looking at those, I say that holding call on the Odunze pass, sure, you can be upset about that. But also look at when the first scoring drive, when you have to settle for 3 instead of 7 because Michael Penix on a ball that he delivers a strike all year long, sails high. Look on the fourth down earlier or later in the game, I think on the very next drive, where Odunze, or 2 drives later, when Odunze, the safety vacates towards the middle, right. Odunze takes it skinny up the seam because he had an option route on that, right? But if the safety vacates that hard, you hold that thing skinny and you deliver it on the run in stride. Penix throws a corner. Could Odunze have bent it out for a little bit further? Yes, but he's so wide open, you don't have to have that ball on a line.
Just put it on him.
Get it out there, and he makes a play, and he's off to the races, right?
Right.
Now, there was a little bit of a miscommunication, but when the safety vacates that hard, you say, I'm not running a corner. I'm running basically a seam at that point because the safety was gone.
He disappeared. It was miscommunication by Michigan.
It was a miscommunication by Penix and Odunze. Look at those opportunities instead. There were drop balls. There were missed throws by Michael Penix Jr. that we hadn't seen all year long. We'd said this all season. When it comes down to it, when everybody in the stadium knows where the ball is going, Penix and Odunze find each other. They were unable to do that last night.
Right.
And like look at those, because those opportunities, those are the ones that you sit there and you go, nothing would have stopped them at that point. Those are points on the board at that point.
Well, because that
instead of the hold call that could have, you would have gotten 15 yards out of that and you have another first down. That would have been helpful for you, right? But there's no guarantees you're scoring. Those two plays, that's 6 points apiece that are on the taken off the board.
Right. Well, I mean, the Odunze play puts it into a one-score game. You score right before halftime.
Yep.
That game goes into halftime tied. And again, you had no
Washington gets the ball back to start the second half.
And I forget which drive it was, but there's another drive later on in the second half where Penix has to takes the check down because he's worried about getting hit. And I'm going to keep beating this drum and I'm going to beat the dead horse, and it just kind of is what it is. Yeah. This is the first time all year that a team got consistent pressure on Michael Penix. There's a reason this UW O-line won the Joe Moore Award, because they were the best offensive line all year long. But when you go against a defense like this Michigan defense that has dudes and has players on all three levels, from the defensive line to the linebackers to the DBs, and you have DBs that for the majority of the game were able to stick onto these UW receivers and make every throw difficult. That was something that you hadn't seen all year. And then you had a defensive line that wasn't just getting pressure on Penix, because I thought it was going to come from the edges, which it did. No. But it came from right up the middle. And that's the worst spot for a quarterback to have pressure, because he sees it. It is right in his face. He sees the pocket collapse and there's nowhere for him to go. He has to roll back. And Penix is not the most mobile quarterback because of his injury history. Because they were able to get that pressure on Penix, Penix started getting rid of the ball much sooner than he would have in years past, and he missed guys. There were guys that were open in the seam when Michigan would go into that cover 2 look, and they'd have both their safeties dropping in the middle of the field. You want to attack that middle, right where the linebackers are, right where Westover should have had a huge game. But Penix missed him because he was so worried about getting hit that he would dump the ball off to McMillan and to Polk, where they were in tight coverage.
And you got to give great credit to Michigan, too, on that, is their sure tackling. St. Still was he had one where if McMillan breaks out of that tackle in the first quarter, he is off to the races. That is a big play.
Yes.
It was the best arm tackle I've ever seen. It's not, you're not going to put any film on it like, hey, this is how we want to tackle it. It was an all-arm tackle, and he just willed Jalen McMillan down. I said this yesterday heading into that, and I think that this is a good point to kind of visit, is I thought Michigan's interior against the guards and center of Washington was going to be where that game was won and lost by Michigan. Yeah. They won it there. Those guys need their flowers because they did something the Huskies were unable to do. Next on The Fan.
Hello, sports fans.
Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
All right, still unpacking this national title game between Michigan and Washington. What a fun game it was, though.
It was great, man.
It was fun.
And like the final score looks a lot more egregious than what it really was.
Yep.
But the part that's funny about it at the same time, I never felt like UW was in it. As close as it was,
Michigan controlled it.
Michigan controlled it, and they never gave UW the reins. But it was a lot closer than what it looks like. It's a weird, two things are true at the same time. It's a weird paradox.
Look, we can be quite clear and honest about kind of where the ups and downs were for Washington too. And in Tula and Tala were two guys that need to had big games. And I thought Alfonso Tupatala at the beginning of that game, he was one of those guys that he was just a hair slow on his reactions, and that led to big runs for Michigan. And that's football, man. That's what happens. I thought what was incredible was how well he was able to adjust, and they really did. The rushing numbers were insane for Michigan in that game. But outside of that, first quarter where they just were springing them left and right, they did settle into a nice little groove, and it was because guys like Tupatala were making plays. They were on their toes and not their heels. There was, at the beginning of the game, it was reactionary, and they were on their heels, and Michigan was just running downhill. There was a good swath of that game, though, where it was equalized until J.J. McCarthy started pulling the ball and holding those linebackers back a little bit more, because I thought the adjustments were good by Washington. They were enough. Mm-hmm. It was, again, coming down to executing the big plays offensively that could have kept that game closer or closed that gap and do a tie at certain points where they just, as Kalen DeBoer said, self-inflicted wounds.
Yeah, 100%. When you look, and we've talked about it a little bit, but Chris Jenkins, I believe, is the X factor in what helped win this game. Mason Graham as well, but Chris Jenkins is the one that I'm going to key on because he was the nose guard and defensive tackle that went up against the center for the most part for the Huskies. Now, the Huskies center is a slightly undersized offensive lineman. They have him listed, I believe, at like 290. They said he was playing at 278 in that game.
Wow.
Chris Jenkins is 340. I don't care how strong you are. I don't care how much of a workout warrior you are. When you have a 60-pound difference, you are going to struggle. There is a reason that there are weight classes in boxing, in UFC, in MMA. You can be the best lightweight, whatever, flyweight, strawweight, whatever fighter. If you have to go against the fifth best heavyweight, you're going to get dominated because they can just use that size and let it wear you down and beat on you. And that's what Chris Jenkins did this whole game. On the play where he goes in the backfield and he helps create that sack, he literally forklifts the offensive lineman from UW, throws him to the ground, and then just hauls ass to Penix.
That sack was like the backbreaker for UW.
It completely changed how Penix played that game.
And that is something that we need to kind of talk about as like an offshoot of this is Michael Penix Jr. had not gotten hit all game long or all season long. He gets touched up in that game. And we talked about this yesterday. The second half of the Oregon game up in Seattle, he got hit and that changed the game. And if you want to look at where some of the scouts are grading Michael Penix Jr. down, look no further than that, right? Is that you are going to get hit. You are going to get touched up. The pocket is never going to be as clean as it was all season long. And maybe that is what the NFL evaluators are saying. I look at his accuracy. I look at the arm strength, his ability to make quick and decisive reads. I still think Michael Penix Jr. is a very good quarterback, but that may be where teams are knocking him because he started getting hit and all of a sudden he looked like a different quarterback. But as we were talking about yesterday heading into that game, I said that those three defensive tackles who, by the way, they play a 2-tackle scheme defensively. They have a 4-man front.
They rotate them all.
They had 3 guys that were honored on the All Big Ten postseason awards. Mason Graham, Chris Jenkins, and Kenneth Grant all were all league. They only played 2 at a time. 3 of them were all conference in the Big Ten. They are loaded up front, and that is
They're young.
And that is the thing that you sit there and you look at with Michigan and how they won that football game. Their edges, the tackles, I thought did a good enough job against the edges. Rosengarten had those 2 holding calls at right tackle, but it's offensive line. I'll never criticize a guy for having a holding call on the edge, especially when you're going against those freaks on the outside that Michigan has. But it was on the interior where that game was won for the Michigan Wolverines. And those 3 defensive tackles were able to not just make it a stalemate, but get those offensive linemen on their heels throughout the course of 60 minutes. Something Washington was just unable to do to Michigan's offensive line on the flip side.
No, because there's no combative to that. You can't change. You can't move something around.
Physics,
If
man.
they are dominating you in the middle of your offensive line, Penix is going to see that. It's right in front of his field of vision. When he's going through his reads, he can see that.
Yep.
And the minute he saw that there was going to be pressure on him, he completely changed as a quarterback. And here's the thing for Penix. Most quarterbacks are like that. There's only 1 or 2 in my eyes that I can remember who didn't care that they were coming at them. One, Josh Allen, because he's kind of dumb, coming right at him up the middle. And the other one was Tom Brady, because he knew where his hot route was at all times. And in this game, you saw Michael Penix for the first time become mortal because he was getting pressure right up the middle. And you said this yesterday, Dusty. You said that the fact that the undersized guards and centers at UW hadn't hurt them yet was surprising to you. It finally caught up.
Yep.
You had 3 interior defensive linemen that were stronger than UW, that were faster than UW, and they were able to get pressure. And yes, the secondary for Michigan played a great game. We've never seen a secondary stick like glue to Odunze, McMillan, and Polk all game long. But this crew did. But when they messed up and they had blown coverages, aside from the one Michael Penix missed to Rome Odunze, I felt like Penix missed because he had pressure in his face.
Yep. And look, every quarterback is uncomfortable when that pressure comes up the middle. Vancouver Ford text line, when Brady lost, though, it was because the pass rush came up the middle and got him. Any quarterback. If there's nowhere to step up to, impossible unless you're Kyler Murray, Patrick Mahomes, those guys who get out on the edges and can, Josh Allen, you get on the edges and you can sling it freelancing.
Right.
Any quarterback, though, even those guys, it screws your rhythm. It screws your rhythm tremendously.
And he handles it the best. He's retired. He handled it the best.
Yeah.
But when he lost, that's correct.
Yep.
That's what teams did to him.
We got a few texts on the Vancouver Ford text line on Dan Lanning, prominent on the broadcast. Dan Lanning was, as Ducks are going to the Big Ten, saw Washington twice. I thought it was interesting to see him as much as we did, and how he commented on halftime, like, "Hey, this is what defensive line is supposed to be played like." There's Washington holding, and look, it wasn't a shot at Washington per se. It's every offensive line, but Washington had gotten away with, I know Coug fans were like, "Oh, you Washington fans complaining about holding calls, huh?" And they had this screenshot of, in the Apple Cup where there's like 3 guys being held on the game clinching play for UW. But it's like, that is when you have an offensive line that every offensive lineman holds. Every single one. On every single play.
And you're taught.
But
how to.
When you don't get away with it, boy, is it pronounced.
Yes.
And it finally caught up. And, that's not to discredit anything Washington had done all season long. It was just they got got those calls in the wrong times on the biggest stage, which is the national championship game. Michigan is the national champ, though. And now it's the...
Sorry, you mean America's team?
It's... What is up with that chair over there?
America.
Whoever is in that chair just wants to start spouting off on America's team. Yeah.
No.
Danny calls the Raiders America's team. We got Ortner over there calling Michigan America's team. What are we doing
Sorry that
here?
I'm a patriot and I support America. No one was more excited than when we beat Sweden in hockey than I.
Oh, my gosh.
USA. Right. USA. USA. How dare you puke on USA, you commie.
Well,
They aren't looking for a head coach.
There's nothing more American
they
than
will be
cheating.
obvious.
And is this a tainted title? Next on The Fan.
football's postseason.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
This is a wild card week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Injured? Don't trust just anyone to something so personal. Call George McCoy at Warren Allen. Online at warrenallen.com.
Danny and Dusty on 1080.
You kidding me? Playoffs?
The Fan.
All right, super wild card week here. We'll have a lot of NFL that we need to get to still, including 3 Up, 3 Down at 2 o'clock, coming out of the final regular season, final week of the regular season. But the college football national championship game was last night. Michigan is the winners. Hail to the victors. And to the victors go the spoils. But this is a scandalous Michigan program.
America's team.
Connor Stallions was not in attendance like he was sitting, I think, nearly front row at the Rose Bowl. He was at a bar in Houston, though. He was present in Houston, and he probably partied it up with the staff and afterwards in Houston.
Do you think he ever
fans
buys
were buying
a beer
beers?
Again? Do you think
no?
If whenever he's in Ann Arbor, there's no chance he ever buys a beer again.
No, they cheated their asses off, and they're hailing him as the martyr here. He died for everybody, and they are going to celebrate him now. I look at what Michigan was able to accomplish, and I'm actually pretty impressed by it. The cheating scandal that kind of surrounded them late in the year. I said this at the time, it means a lot to know what the other team is doing, right?
100%.
When you can decipher those signs, you know in advance what a team is going to do. But you played college football as well. You know that other teams are trying to get your signals and your signs of what you're trying to do.
And you're trying to get theirs. But I'm also a big believer in I don't care if you know what I'm doing. Stop it.
And that was what I said at the time, is that it is incredibly difficult, even if you know what the other team is doing, because what great teams do, what Michigan did to Washington last night, Washington knew exactly what Michigan was going to do to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, stop us. Do it. And you could not do it. And in the game of football, I relate it this way. In high school football, you may got 4 kids that just go off script and do their own thing, right?
All the time. It's the most frustrating thing ever.
Good high school teams, you have, 2 kids on any given play that are not doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. In college, even at the highest level of college, on any given play, you have 1 to 2 guys that do not do their job, right? And they go off script, even at the highest levels of college football. You will have, and that's what makes successful plays happen, right?
Right.
So it is still incredibly hard to do. But after the fact that the whole Connor Stallions thing happened, I was impressed with Michigan staying on the rails and staying on course, because that can derail a season quicker than it can happen in a flash.
It almost seemed to be a rallying cry for them. Everyone is coming against it. It's weird because we all on the outside, we laugh and we're like, look at Harbaugh grift. Everyone is attacking us. We should be America's team, but they are hating on us. And it's like, well, you created these problems. Everyone in that locker room, from the coaching staff to the players, to the trainers, to even the equipment managers, to quote Giannis Antetokounmpo, they all got around each other and said, yes, everyone is attacking us for doing the same things that everyone else was doing. Yes, we were doing way more than what everyone else was doing, probably to an illegal standpoint, but we're stealing plays the same way Ohio State was trying to steal plays and signals, the same way Penn State, the same way Minnesota. And it became a rallying cry around them of everyone hates us, instead of what it could have been where, oh, well, I guess we aren't that good. That advantage was gone. And that is why I'm still impressed with what Michigan did. Mm-hmm. And I understand people are just, they cheated, and that's never going to change with people, because one, you probably just don't like Michigan in the first place. Or Harbaugh.
And as somebody who is experienced with hey, anything away from me for Michigan. And I know that that's not going to be a surprise to anybody listening. It really doesn't, because what we saw last night was the best team in college football winning in the national championship game. And I don't want to hear anybody there's this SEC revisionist history that's starting now where people are like, whoa, it would have been different if Georgia. Stop with this. It would have been different if Georgia was in it.
Then Georgia should have beat Alabama.
They should have. Right? Like, don't give me this. And like Florida State would have gotten waxed by both of the teams that were on the field last night.
Shut up, Danny Cannell.
They would have gotten waxed by both of those teams. We saw great drama and great football in the semifinals and the championship game. And Michigan came out on top of it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the other thing that people have to remember here is in 10 years, are we really going to come back and be like, whoa, it was an asterisk because of the cheating scandal? Like, when you look back at the Patriots, quote unquote, scandals, does anyone say, well, they only won because of Deflategate? They only won because of Spygate. They only won because of Spygate. No. Banners fly forever. And this banner is going to fly forever for Michigan. Did they maybe get there or at least start on their way through some nefarious ways? Sure. They went way far and beyond what they should have been doing with sign stealing. Mm-hmm. But every team tries to sign steal. I remember being in meeting rooms where if the huddle camera was pointed at a team's signals, you tried to write them down and tried to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. But that is within the rules.
And yes,
they went above. They went beyond that.
They went beyond that.
That is not right. Just like, what the Astros did or what the Patriots did, what we've seen in other cheating scandals.
But they faced the punishment.
They did.
They did the time. They did the crime and they did the time and they still beat everyone's ass. And they beat it being themselves. Yep. They never changed. There wasn't any luck. It wasn't like at the end of the game, J.J. McCarthy threw a 90-yard Hail Mary for them to beat UW. They dominated every team they went against. And if Georgia was as big as bad as everyone says they were, then they should have beat Alabama.
I love this response. Blake Corum was asked about this question. Actually, we have the question in it. This question was directed towards Blake Corum, the running back from Michigan. And you hear Jim Harbaugh take it over. I chuckle at this. Like, I just got done saying this does not take anything away from Michigan and what they were able to do in the semifinals, the end of the regular season without Jim Harbaugh, those 3 regular season games, the Big Ten championship game, the semifinal, and the national championship game. Doesn't take any of that away from it. But I still do. It is, at the same time, you can also chuckle at this response from Jim Harbaugh, taking over a Blake Corum question.
This was not a season where everything went the way you wanted it to. There was the off-the-field issues, which we all know about. Can you talk about the satisfaction having overcome those as well to get to this point? Does it make it even sweeter?
Can I? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it couldn't have gone better. It went exactly how we wanted it to go.
Yeah, you won a championship.
To win every game. The off the field issues, we're innocent. and we stood strong and tall because we knew we were innocent.
You got suspended 3 games.
I just like to point that out. And these guys are innocent. And overcome that. It wasn't that hard because we knew we were innocent. So that's really what I want to say. It went exactly how we wanted it to go. It went exactly how we wanted it to go.
I don't believe you.
I love that.
Harbaugh would be a great boyfriend that got caught cheating. That was like right out of the cheating boyfriend playbook.
That was Shaggy. It wasn't me.
I am innocent, but we have text messages of you texting her. That wasn't me. You're reading into that wrong.
She is behind that curtain right there. No, she's not.
Nope. Never seen that woman in my life.
Oh my God, there's an intruder. Like that is
Call the police.
We are innocent. We didn't do anything wrong. Jim, you were suspended for 3 games. Do we forget that?
If you just say you're innocent long enough, people will forget. I'm telling you, Dusty, people are going to forget.
Just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Costanza.
And he's pulling a Costanza.
He 100% is Costanza.
He's a genius.
Yeah.
Just say that you're innocent, and in 10 years, people will forget. Mm-hmm. And in 20 years, you'll bring up this fact at like a dinner party and be like, do you remember that they were cheating when Michigan won the 2024 national championship? And people go, oh my goodness, I had no idea.
We got 2 drops out of that. I think there's one where he says, I'd like to point that out. And then where he says it just went the exact way we wanted it to go. I mean, it's too perfect. Like, Jim, the only thing that you were correct on when you said we're innocent is when you corrected yourself and you said, these guys are innocent. Because I really do think that the players didn't know.
No, the players are innocent.
Players didn't really care either. Like, it was not them. But, Jim, you were suspended for 3 games. You
might not have been innocent.
You were not innocent. Quite literally, you admitted that there was some guilt by accepting a 3-game suspension.
I fell on the sword for the kids so that the kids didn't get punished.
Yeah.
I'm a martyr.
God bless you, Jim Harbaugh. God bless you.
People are going to forget, man.
All right, 503-864-6326. That's a Vancouver Ford text line. Your dollar goes further at Vancouver Ford. They treat you right before, during, and after the sale. Visit them online at vancouverford.com. Let's take a break from the national championship. Take a breath, step away. We had another firing, not Black Monday, Black Tuesday.
Ooh.
For one franchise that I think has made a horrible miscalculation here. Danny and Dusty, Ortner and Dusty edition on The Fan.
AAA
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
The Tennessee Titans have parted ways with Mike Vrabel. A little bit of a surprise. A little bit of a surprise fire.
They like to do a lot of dumb things surprising, right? Like it's the A.J. Brown trade all over again. Like, we finally have a really good wide receiver, and he's young, and he's willing to let us pay for him at a discount. Our head coach wants him, so we'll trade him away for some spare parts and then do nothing with those draft picks.
Yeah, I'm very surprised at this because, look, Mike Vrabel, think about what he has done there. They've gone to, he's head coach since 2018, so 6 seasons, right? First 3 seasons he was there, he went to the playoffs 3 times. The last 2 seasons, he has missed the playoffs. Okay, first 4 seasons went to the playoffs 3 times and missed the playoffs in back-to-back seasons. And they were 6-11 this year, yet he was 54-45. Division has not been great, but 54-45, 9 games over 500 with subpar quarterback play. Think about that in the NFL.
Below average.
He has had Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis and Malik Willis. Like, they've drafted quarterbacks in back-to-back years, and they're like, no, win with them. That is crazy to me. And then they trade away their best player in A.J. Brown, like you said.
Right. The best weapon when you have a young quarterback is experienced wide receiver play. And you get rid of him. When you could have paid $20 million for him,
yeah,
that's a good price for an A.J. Brown level receiver.
Yep.
$20 million a year, as weird as this sounds, is a fair price to pay. The receivers that you went out and drafted with that draft capital you got back, none of them have hit.
Yep.
You built a team that has been successful because you had a strong offensive line and maybe the most freakish running back since Adrian Peterson.
You have a man that he is a leader of men. Like you hear it to a man, and Derrick Henry said that exact thing. He was shocked when he heard, and Derrick Henry gave his farewell speech to the Titans because it appears that he is gone after this year as well. But Vrabel, apparently there is a rub with the general manager because they did, remember, go through a GM change and overhaul, and every GM wants to have their guy. And apparently there was a rift in the relationship between Vrabel and the general manager. Now, you part ways with Vrabel, and this is the question that I always have. Who are you going to get that's better?
Right.
And that is what I always go to, because what are the Titans going to go and do? Are they going to go and hire Bill Belichick? Are they going to trade for Bill Belichick? Bill Belichick's future in New England, by reports that came out this morning, is that they're still trying. Belichick is working for it, and everybody in the building is just operating as business as usual, with Belichick still calling all the shots and doing all the postseason wrap-up stuff because no decision has been made in New England even. And there's like this idea of people that are working there like, I don't know, like we've heard what you guys are hearing, but not from anybody in here. We're just continuing to work. So are you going to go out and get Bill Belichick? Who is going to be better than the guy that you have? And that is always the risk when you fire a head coach, right? You fire Arthur Smith, you could say, yeah, we needed that reset. We gave him all the tools and he couldn't cook with them, right? Like he couldn't do it. We had all the tools, we had all the hardware, he couldn't build our shelf, right? IKEA gave him the directions even. Mm-hmm. He had everything. Couldn't do it. Like Vrabel is going to be a guy who's going to be sought after in this coaching carousel. Right now, that's numero uno in my mind of the guy that you go and get.
When you look at this free agent head coach class, I guess is what we're going to call it, is this maybe the deepest free agent head coach class that's out there?
Good.
Because right now, you in reality, you have Vrabel, you have an opportunity for someone like Harbaugh, and then you've got all the hotshot OCs. Mm-hmm. You could go out and try and get Ben Johnson. You could go and...
But if you're Ben Johnson, you're looking at Atlanta, and you're going, that's more attractive than what they got going there. Oh, you mean Derrick Henry's going to be gone too? And
it's a complete rebuild. You'd almost have to promise that you're going to give me 5 years.
Yeah.
Because you need more than 3 years to rebuild that. I wonder, the only reason this makes sense to me is if the GM thinks he can go get his guy for an OC. He thinks that he can get like a Ben Johnson type or maybe an Eric Bieniemy or whoever fits that mold for him. Because otherwise this doesn't make any sense. And I thought the Bears in Chicago made the dumbest coaching decision of anyone before the Titans just fired Vrabel when they kept Dweeberflus. That guy is horrible. Did I say his name wrong?
I think you may have. I like that.
Is his name not
Dweeberflus?
Dweeberflus?
But if you
He's a dweeb?
if you are any head coach, think about this.
Mm-hmm.
Who the Titans' job right now? Is it better than the Chargers' job?
No.
Is it better than the Falcons' job?
No.
Is it better than the Commanders' job?
Maybe. Depends on if they let you draft. Well, I mean, you have the number 2 pick. Like, if
Well,
you
the
get
ownership
guy,
change in Washington helps a hell of a lot.
It helps.
Yeah,
but
you
they
got
also
a basketball guy telling you what to do.
They also got rid of their 2 best pass rushers this year, Chase Young and Sweat.
Right, and that's a complete rebuild, but it is a complete rebuild with the number 2 overall pick in a QB draft class that is deep.
Better than the Raiders' job.
No, the Raiders' job is better. Again, you just need a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, I would not say, because the Titans, it is a complete rebuild. Maybe Levis is the guy. He's shown flashes.
I think you do have something with Will Levis. I think you have, but you have so many different holes, and now you have to find a guy who wants to tailor his entire offense around Will Levis, because this is Derrick Henry. He said goodbye. Right? This is the best 8 years of my life. He's like, deuces, I'm out.
Well, you know? and he's a shell of what he was.
So you have to find somebody who is willing and able to build an offense around Will Levis. And that's going to be easier said than done. In a division that is getting better. Houston has their quarterback of the future in C.J. Stroud, and DeMeco Ryan seemed to be steadying that ship. They had a really good draft of Nick Caserio, which is why Nick Caserio in Houston is exactly why New England blocked his move to Houston before. He's really good in player talent and evaluation.
Okay? And coach talent and evaluation.
So they appear to be on the uptick. You have the Jags had a regression this year, but I think that those regressions are standard, and it's part of the business. When you go to the playoffs a year early, you do take a step back before taking a leap forward.
They were also largely injury-based, too.
And I do believe Jacksonville is on the right track. Mm-hmm. You have the Indianapolis Colts where Shane Steichen, man, that you look at Philly with how valuable he is, and if they can keep Anthony Richardson healthy, he showed some flashes in the first few games of the season where you're like, hey, they may have something there. That division is on the upswing right now. Mm-hmm. And you're looking for a new coach and a lot of question marks in Tennessee.
It kind of looks like the AFC North 2 years ago, where everyone seems to be rising except for one team. And in that case, that's why Cleveland went out and made the big splash to go get Deshaun Watson, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of what it seems like they're trying to do here in Tennessee. But wouldn't you trust Vrabel, the guy who has proven that he can do it with subpar QB play? The only thing that I can think here that makes sense in this firing is just straight up the GM didn't want to deal with Vrabel because Vrabel can be...
It's not his guy.
Vrabel can be a bit difficult to work with. Yeah. But there's a reason he's a bit difficult to work with, because he comes from that Belichick tree and he's seen how it takes... how to be successful in that role. Now, when you talk to all the players that played for him, they all love him.
Yeah.
When you listen to Will Compton, Taylor Lewan on their podcast, and a bunch of the other guys, Delaney Walker, after they leave, everyone loves Vrabel. I don't think that he's going to be hard-pressed to find another job, and I really do think if Harbaugh decides not to leave Michigan, he's got to be the number one choice. He might be able to sit back and say, you all come to me. Mm-hmm. Give me your best offer.
Yep. The homie Diana Rossini reported earlier today. Did you see what she said? She said they were
all shocked.
No, they were thinking about trading Vrabel, but they didn't want to drag the process out. That's the other thing where you're like, red flag number 8 billion here. We could have gotten value out of him, but we didn't want this to take too long.
That's so relatable.
What are we doing?
I'm sorry. I do kind of relate to that. Like, we could do our laundry, But that would take time, so we'll just turn our underwear inside out
and buy new clothes
and be okay.
I'm going to do what Allen Iverson did, which is just like when they went on road trips, he just wore what he wore, and he just buy new clothes in every city because he just leave them there.
No, that'll be fine.
Michigan or Ohio State fans having fun with this one though. They have already updated his Wikipedia page because Mike Vrabel, Ohio State guy, remember coached at Ohio State, linebackers coach.
He's not going to Ohio State.
They have updated his Wikipedia. Tennessee Titans head coach 2018 through 2023. Ohio State head coach 2024 to present. They want Ryan Day out in a bad way.
Yeah, Vrabel's not going to college because there's no offseason in college. As hard as everyone works in the NFL, there is time to be a normal human being.
Yeah.
When you stay in college, that's when you turn into Jim Harbaugh. Yeah. That's when you turn into a crazy person like Nick Saban. Vrabel,
I think Harbaugh would have been this way no matter what.
That is true. The story of the dad looking at the two kids, like whenever anything went wrong, like, who's got it better than us?
Nobody. O'Doyle rules.
But John's normal. John is relatively normal.
Yeah, or he just doesn't speak enough. Like
but doesn't that make him normal to understand, like, I'm not normal, so I'm not going to say these things?
Maybe the Biscotti family and the Baltimore Ravens organization is like, you will not speak. You are football savant. Shh.
Be normal over here.
No. All right. 503-864-6326. That'd be the Vancouver Ford text. And we got our worst day on the web. The ongoing feud, it continues. We've got audio. Fun with audio. The back and forth. Huh? Kimmel versus Rogers.
Ding, ding.
Hey, as the Pac-12 has ended, we've got a Pac-12 feud going on. ASU versus Cal, huh? Who'd have thunk it? Next on The Fan.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
It's indoor golf season. Check out X Golf in Vancouver or Tualatin, the home of indoor golf, online at xgolfpnw.com. First on The Fan, Black Monday in the NFL has bled into Black Tuesday. The Titans have fired head coach Mike Vrabel after 6 seasons. Vrabel led Tennessee to winning records in each of his first 4 seasons, including 3 playoff berths and Coach of the Year honors for 2021. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin says linebacker TJ Watt out Sunday at the Bills due to a knee injury suffered Saturday against the Ravens. Tomlin also said Mason Rudolph will start under center after leading the team to 3 straight wins. In the final AP Top 25 ranking of the season, Oregon finishes tied for 6th with Florida State. Michigan, Washington, Texas, Georgia, and Alabama are your top 5. Arizona finishes at number 11, and Oregon State fell out of the rankings altogether. Washington receiver Jalen Polk announced he is leaving school to enter the NFL draft. In the NBA, Trailblazers back on the court this afternoon facing the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. 4:30 tip on Root Sports Plus. Matisse Thybulle, Jabari Walker are questionable. DeAndre Ayton is doubtful. The Blazers are 12.5-point dogs. An MRI on Pacers guard Tyrese Halliburton showed a left hamstring strain. He'll be reevaluated following Indiana's upcoming road trip, which wraps up January 21st in Phoenix. And Warriors guard Chris Paul will be reevaluated in 3 weeks after having surgery on his fractured hand yesterday. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rush at the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get to Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook, powered by BetMGM. For all the pro football postseason action, visit spiritmountain.com.
If you can't find the humor in today's NBA, you're doing it wrong. Heat Check with Trista Crick on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Leafs has been Portland's number
at warrenallen.com.
On 1080 The Fan. It's time for today's worst day on the web. With Danny and Dusty on Odyssey and 1080 The Fan.
Well, that sucks.
All right, today our worst day on the web belongs to two men. Jimothy Kimmel and Aaron Rodgers.
Are we sure Jimothy is his full name?
Yeah.
Are we sure it's not James?
No, it's Jim. I think Jimothy.
Jim?
Yeah.
James?
Yeah.
Jimothy?
The back and forth between Jimmy Kimmel and Aaron Rodgers continued. Kimmel had been cracking jokes all through COVID about Aaron Rodgers and his thoughts on COVID and conspiracy theories as a whole because he's a comedian with a late night show. Like, that's what they do. They make fun of celebrities who say stupid stuff. And Jimmy Kimmel is a man of the people and a sports fan as well.
Yeah.
Who, like, his audience kind of skews towards sports watching folks. So Aaron Rodgers became an easy target for him. Well, Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show where he gets paid handsomely to go on there.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a paid appearance.
$1 million.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Could be Aaron.
So he goes on McAfee show and he spouts off about, because Rodgers at one point was talking about UFOs on the McAfee show, and some like went straight from the UFO document release into the Epstein list is going to be coming out soon. And Kimmel cracked a joke at Rodgers like, what tinfoil kind of hat guy is this? So we fast forward and Rodgers goes and he makes his Kimmel joke about, the Epstein list is coming out and Jimmy Kimmel doesn't want to see that one released. Some took it as insinuating Jimmy Kimmel was on the list.
I see both sides of it.
I was more on the line. I was on the side of, I think he was saying he doesn't want the list to come out because he would be proved wrong that the list didn't exist, right?
Right. But I also think that, like, if I'm Jimmy Kimmel, it's not that far of a leap for him to go, well, if Aaron Rodgers says this, a crazy person will then think I'm on the list because there will be fake lists that go all over Twitter.
100%.
And then he seems to be kind of out in the public eye. Like he's walking around with his family. He's had his family on camera and on his show before. I don't feel like it's a big leap for him to be worried about some random Joe Schmo on the street recognizing his family, his kids, his wife, or something like that, and then accosting them.
Well, and that's what he started his monologue yesterday, was the first show that Kimmel was back on. And he came out of the gate of his monologue saying just that, like, hey, me and Rodgers have been going back and forth, and like, I don't know Epstein. I wasn't on the list. Nobody I know is on the list. I've never met the guy. I wasn't on those logs, but just what you said, that people have been coming out of the woodwork accusing him of it because of what Rodgers said. I get that, and I'd be pissed too if I'm Kimmel.
Right.
So he went in even further after he kind of did the whole explanation thing, and he went in on Aaron Rodgers.
But here's the thing. I spent years doing sports. I've seen guys like him before. Aaron Rodgers has a very high opinion of himself because he had success on the football field. He believes himself to be an extraordinary being. He genuinely thinks that because God gave him the ability to throw a ball, he's smarter than everyone else. The idea that his brain is just average is unfathomable to him. We learned during COVID, somehow he knows more about science than scientists. A guy who went to community college, then got into Cal on a football scholarship and didn't graduate, someone who never spent a minute studying the human body, is an expert in the field of immunology. He just put on a magic helmet, and that G made him a genius. Aaron got 2 A's on his report card. They were both in the word Aaron.
Okay, taking his shots.
There were some of those comments there that hit a little close to home. I'm not going to lie.
And you and I both know people that are like that because they are good at football and maybe a football savant or a basketball savant or, or a baseball savant.
Or they just hate the doctor.
But no, they think that I am extremely smart in this one field. There's no way that I could not be as smart in every field.
Right.
As this one, right?
Right.
We've all come across those people. And Rodgers has a lot of that to him, right? He has a lot of that arrogance going on.
He loves himself some Aaron Rodgers.
Right. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is as dumb as old Jimmy Kimmel, who went to Arizona State, is accusing him of being. But I do understand where he's coming from. I'm like, God, this guy's going to take cracks at me. I'm going to take cracks right back. So Jimmy Kimmel sticks up for himself. Well, guess what happens on Tuesdays? Aaron Rodgers goes on the Pat McAfee show. And here comes Rodgers. The petty war is continuing.
In the end, to sum this up, listen, I still haven't popped a bottle because there hasn't been any list that's come out. And I'm glad that Jimmy is not on the list. I really am. And I don't think he's the P word.
The P word? Pedophile?
And
I thought Panther fan.
You know, I think it's impressive that a man who went to Arizona State and has 10 joke writers can read off a prompter. So, you know, my education at JUCO and my 3 semesters at Cal that I'm very proud of has worked out for me, and I'm glad to see it's worked out for him as well. So I wish him the best. Again, I don't give a shit what he says about me.
I love that. I love that he goes, guy who went to Arizona State and has 10 joke writers. That's actually a decent comeback.
That's a good line.
I love how he wraps it up too with I don't give an S about what he says about me at the end of his 7-minute rant about what Jimmy Kimmel said about him.
Yeah, that was 47 seconds of a 7-minute uninterrupted rant.
Yes.
Well, you know what? He doesn't have 10 joke writers. He only has himself, and he has to figure it out. And look, if Jimmy's right, he only had 2 A's on his report card, and they were in his name. It takes him a while.
Cal is a good school. Cal's a good school. It's a great school.
He had to,
phenomenal school. One of the best public institutions in the land.
He had to have been decently intelligent to get into Cal. Cal's not just letting everyone in because of their football. Marshawn.
Well,
Marshawn's actually pretty smart.
That was something that Jeff Tedford got. You know, he got a lot of guys in that probably shouldn't be in Cal because of how hard it is. One of the hardest schools to get into.
It's a smart person school.
Yeah, it is.
Harvard of the
I
West
love
Coast.
I love it. I can't wait for the next shots to be fired in this. But hold on. Now, Rodgers started that saying, I'm not popping champagne bottles because the list hasn't been revealed yet. Yeah. Not the full list. Right? Is that what he's talking about?
Yes.
But then
the list is out, right?
He goes, no, not the full list.
But most.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a big chunk that it is not. But Rodgers is sitting there going, I'm not popping bottles because the list isn't out yet. But I'm glad Kimmel isn't on the list. So does he know what the list is? Is the list not out, but Aaron Rodgers has it?
It's him and David Bakhtiari after they've each been drinking a couple Coors Lights, and they're like, what should be here? What should be there? Who do we think is the P word?
This is why we shouldn't. Yeah, the P word.
What is the P word?
Pedophile. That is the word that everybody was looking for.
I thought it was prankster.
No, it isn't. It isn't. All right, so worst day on the web goes to those 2 men because, this is dumb. It is petty. The petty wars are there.
I'm just glad that they're keeping Pac-12 rivalries alive. I was worried with the dissolution of the conference that we would not have our Pac-12 rivalries. And it's good to see Arizona State go after Cal and Cal go after Arizona State.
Is this the most vicious rivalry that Cal and Arizona State have?
Yeah.
Because they haven't been good at anything and at the same time, like,
Maybe sororities? Like, is there a sorority war between Arizona State?
I don't think so.
Arizona State's got some pretty good sororities.
This may be the best rivalry that we have going between the Sun Devils and the Golden Bears.
Aaron Rodgers versus Jimmy Kimmel?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were both kind of good at basketball at one point.
At one point.
But
not at the same time.
Were they? They were okay. Like James Harden, Arizona State? Before the beard?
I don't think Cal was good that year.
Yeah, all right.
Mark Madsen still at Cal?
Boy, Cal's basketball coach, go.
Jeff Tedford. I just assumed that he's always...
it is Mark Madsen.
It is still? Okay.
Still, he was named it this year.
Oh, was it just this year? Okay. Well, so it still does apply.
So they brought him back?
Still does apply. 2023 to present.
Yeah. All right.
So he was there. He was there, he left, and he came back. I like on the ticker, they have please don't sue us constantly running as Aaron Rodgers is up talking.
Yeah, that's a good one to have. Yeah. Because again, apparently during that, he went after ESPN executives again.
He went after Norby or whatever the dude's name was?
No, McAfee did on Friday.
Yeah.
And then I guess like the big head of ESPN went out and was at the Colts game on Saturday with McAfee to kind of smooth the waters over. And then today, Rodgers went out and went after somebody else.
Well, again, ESPN has to smooth the waters over. They fired a bunch of people and invested a lot of money in McAfee reviving their midday lineup. You kind of have to appease Pat.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's started.
All right. Hey, bad night in the NBA next on The Fan.
It's The Fan.
talking like it's not Kevin Ware.
Oh yeah, that's true.
You're not having a Paul George L issue.
He suffered a grade 1 hamstring strain, which I was thinking like groin, hip flexor, maybe in there, but just hamstring strain. He's going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks, and that sucks for that young man because we saw him coming into this season. There was a lot of expectations around him, not so much with the Indiana Pacers, but with the way that he performed, especially in the in-season tournament, he kind of grabbed this new level of stardom. Heck, leading guard in all-star voting in the Eastern Conference ahead of Damian Lillard. And now you have this where he goes through the lane and does the split skis, and he goes down, and that is a tough one. And on his home floor, too. Home mop boy, that's going to be a tough one when he goes back to middle school today. And they're like, dude.
It's not a middle schooler. They're high school.
They're like, hey.
College interns.
You had one job. Keep the lane dry.
You gotta keep that thing well mopped. But if you're
very impressed with his malleability, though.
If you start paying attention to Halliburton and you're a fan of his game, which you absolutely should be, his ability to pass and get everybody involved,
leads the league in assists.
He is so fun to watch, and he plays the game in an old school style with the new school flair, right? But with a hamstring injury, that's going to linger.
Yeah.
They're going to reevaluate in 2 weeks. He ain't going to be normal in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
He might not be normal again until end of February. Just the way hamstrings work, they're
linger all year, man.
Fickle. You're right. It could linger all year. This might be one of those injuries where it's like Indiana should sit him. If they say, hey, sit him for 3 to 5 weeks, sit him for 7 to 8.
Yes.
Sit him and let him fully heal, because you're going to get into the playoffs in some way, whether it's the in-season tournament or not. Let him fully recover. Let that hamstring heal, because it's going to take time and it's soft tissue and they're just so weird. Don't rush him back, because he'll never be the same, at least not for this year.
The other news of note, injury-wise, in the NBA coming yesterday, Ja Morant done for the year. Apparently hurt his shoulder making it rain at a strip club. Nope,
that's not what happened.
That's not what happened.
That's not
believable, but that's not what happened at all. That's not what happened. That's not what
he
happened.
just said he was waving his gun.
What Ja Morant did was apparently at practice on Saturday, hurt his shoulder, labral tear, going to require surgery. That means he dislocated his shoulder. They're going to have to go in, repair the labrum. Season ender for Ja Morant.
That injury sucks too, because again, once you tear the labrum, it's not like the collarbone. When you break your collarbone, it comes back stronger. Labrum doesn't come back stronger. And a lot of times, once you tear it once, that second tear is coming, and then that thing it's constantly popping out and tearing and popping out.
Well, here's the thing, is that surgeries have gotten a lot better, but it used to be it's like 50-50. That's why my labrum's still gone, left shoulder. Never got surgery on it. Really? But I just live with it popping out. Hasn't happened in a couple of years.
Does it pop out when you swim?
It has.
That's the scariest thing. I remember, I hope the statute of limitations have passed on this. Me and a buddy may or may not have been swimming in a pond on someone's property.
Yeah.
And his popped out.
Okay.
And it was like midnight, couldn't see. Do you know how terrifying that was to try and get him back to shore so we could get him to lay down and pop it back in?
Yeah.
In the middle of a pond that you may or may not have supposed to have been there?
Yeah, that I could see that being pretty scary. I'm not sure why you're worried about statute of limitations, though.
It was a long time ago.
I think you're okay. You literally did not say what pond or where.
There's just dudes.
I don't think any crime was committed. Trespassing, I think.
Trespassing for sure.
I think you're fine. I think you're okay. There's one guy listening who's like, that damn Ortner, he's in my pond again.
If you're from where there have been a lot more worse crimes admitted to on the airways of this program.
I'm gonna say, if you're from where I'm from, it's not hard to figure out what pond I was in.
Like, we're talking about Danny Meringue, who has maybe confessed to 20 crimes on these airwaves. You're fine, dude.
I was going to say, look, in high school,
is Danny in jail?
There wasn't drinking.
Is that where he is?
I haven't heard from him.
There were no drugs, there were no drinking, but there was a lot of trespassing to go swim in a lot of places.
All right. Well,
fish.
Ja out for the year. Tyrese Halliburton out for at least 2 weeks. I bet this is like a month.
Easy.
This is gonna be like a
month. And I bet the work back is slow. That sucks because you saw how injuries derailed the NFL this year at the quarterback position. That point guard position, very similar.
All right, we got 3 up, 3 down to start hour number 3. 3 good, 3 bad from Week 18 in the NFL. Danny and Dusty on the Fan.
The wings are extra spicy this week.
It's getting hotter. It's increasing.
This is Danny and Dusty on Wildcard Week.
Injured? Don't trust just anyone to something so personal. Call George McCoy at Warren Allen. Online at warrenallen.com.
Danny and Dusty on 1080.
My body's like, this is poison.
The Fan.
I think my leg just cramped.
Hour number 3, Danny and Dusty, an Ortner and Dusty edition, as Danny recovers from the flu, not jail.
Probably.
People getting excited. Maybe. If you missed any of the show so far, Service Patriots podcast, 1080thefan.com, or right there in the Odyssey app, wherever you get your podcast. Service Patriots is your home comfort solution for all your heating and air conditioning needs. Check out the latest special offers for our listeners at servicepatriots.com/thefan. All right. Hour number 3, we'll talk more about the College Football Playoff National Championship. Michigan knocking off the Washington Huskies. Where does Washington go from here, and what does it look like moving forward? Plus a little bit of leftovers from that national title game. But before we do that, we got to get to 3 up, 3 down, wrapping up Week 18 in the NFL. Let's get it. Oh, look at that. Look at that. All right, my first up of the week, it has got to be the Houston Texans. DeMeco Ryans, CJ Stroud, the Texans wrapping up the season, a 10-win season for the Houston Texans, 10-7. They win the AFC South. They set up a meeting with their former quarterback's team, not their former quarterback, Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns, as they'll take on Joe Flacco. But this Texans team came out of the gate. They came out of the gate this season, no expectations, 0-2 start. They found their rhythm. They rattle off 10-5 the rest of the way after that 0-2 start, back their way into the playoffs. And I think we forget just how bad they were last year. 3-13-1 last year. They knock it out of the park with their 2 first-round picks and CJ Stroud. They trade up and they get Will Anderson, and all of a sudden, both of those guys are in line for potentially being the Rookie of the Year. And they have a rookie head coach in DeMeco Ryans, who was the captain of the team just a handful of years ago. It truly is impressive, the turnaround that DeMeco Ryans has led. And you saw just how much it meant on Saturday after that win in Indianapolis, punching their ticket. That is a phenomenal turnaround. That's my first up of the week.
My first up of the week is going to go to Buffalo. They survived a bad Josh Allen game. There were multiple points this year where they weren't in the playoffs. When you looked at the In the Hunt graphic, they were barely on the In the Hunt graphic. When they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles went to 10-1, and I believe that they were 6-6 at that time in Buffalo, maybe 5-6. They finished with the same record as those Philadelphia Eagles. They were able to get the second spot in the AFC. Every team except for Baltimore is going to have to go to Buffalo. They're going to get 2 home games. That is huge for them. My first up is to Buffalo.
Number 2, I'm going Baker, touchdown maker.
Ooh.
You don't have to like him. You don't have to love him, but Baker Mayfield has put together a very impressive season by any measure. There are only 2 quarterbacks in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history that have thrown for over 4,000 yards, had more than 25 touchdown passes, and 10 or fewer interceptions. Baker Mayfield and Thomas Edward Brady.
Wow.
Now, the list of quarterbacks for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers has not been great, but 4,044 yards, 28 touchdowns for Baker. He has actually put together a fantastic year that nobody is really talking about in the reverence that it should be. Baker is put together a phenomenal year, led his team to the playoffs in a crappy division, but nonetheless bought himself another year as a starting quarterback for Tampa or somewhere else in the league.
There you go. Big day for Baker. My second.
I just kind of like
I actually like that.
I like Baker Mayfield.
And I like that he's got a little attitude, like that he's got a little spunk to him.
Yep.
I'm a big fan of that. My second up, I'm going with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They found a way to win.
It's the Steelers.
And get in. Mason Rudolph, he's 3-0 in his last 3 starts.
All
They made
right.
the switch. It seemed like they were dead in the water. They lost to the Patriots. Big loss. Now they're going into, final 3 games. Difficult final 3 games against Cincinnati, Seattle, and Baltimore. They came in. They handled business. They were able to keep Tomlin's streak alive. He's never had a losing season. And they were able to back their way into the playoffs. Do I think that they will beat Buffalo? No.
Yeah.
But would it shock you? Would it really, really shock you if these stupid Mason Rudolph-led Steelers found a way to win that game in Buffalo? The way Buffalo season's gone, the way Pittsburgh season's gone? No, it wouldn't. I don't think they'll do it, but you never know. Good for the Steelers. Find a way to get into the playoffs.
All right. My third and final up has got to be Jordan Love, man. He has put together one hell of a season, leading the Green Bay Packers into the playoffs. No, they did not win the NFC North, but Jordan Love in Week 18 especially, he completed a career-high he was a career high plus 13.2% of his passes over expected in their victory over the Chicago Bears. All 7 of his play action passes for 116 yards. He threw for a league high. He almost threw for 1,000 yards off play action alone. They are playing within Jordan Love. And I think that is huge when you look at them moving forward and kind of, he is not trying to be Aaron Rodgers. He's not trying to be somebody that he's not anymore. He is turned into a quarterback system, or be damned. They're developing wide receivers. It's not just because of quarterback play. It's because of what Matt LaFleur and Green Bay have. But Jordan Love has stepped up, and that's a playoff team, man. And, hey, that franchise, for everything that they've done, right? Pissing off Aaron Rodgers during that COVID draft where Roger Goodell, they trade up and they get Jordan Love. Worth it, because now it looks like they have their quarterback of the future.
It looks like they've hit lightning a second time with what they've done. Go out and get the replacement before he already leaves.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Now they got the Cowboys in the playoffs, which giddy up.
Would it shock you if they beat them?
No.
Too? It really wouldn't. The NFL is so weird this year. My last up, I'm sticking in the AFC North. It's got to be the great Stephanie Niles, Jake Browning's girlfriend. Look,
yes,
kudos to the great Stephanie Niles. You knew that this was your last chance. Your boyfriend is never going to be a starter again, or if he is, it's going to be in a fill-in role. You are not going to have an opportunity to be in the starting quarterback's box ever again. And you go out and you pull the white tracksuit out and let everybody know.
That wasn't a tracksuit. That was a speed suit. Like, that was like she
looked like Apollo Ono.
Oh my gosh.
That's what she was wearing. She was wearing an Apollo Ono jersey to a Cincinnati Bengals game.
It's a goddamn mistake.
Kudos to her. You know it's your last time where you have any chance of being in the star, like in everybody's eye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I got there eventually.
Go Tigers!
Good for the great Stephanie Niles. She's getting my last up.
Oh my gosh. Well, I can see why. My first down was the Motor City Kitties heading to the vet. They get to host a playoff game. They're bringing Matthew Stafford back. They've banned Matthew Stafford jerseys from being worn in the stadium. But Sam Laporta goes down with his injury. And I know Dan Campbell said it's not as bad as we thought it was, or as bad as it looked. Is still, if you're without Sam Laporta, that takes away Jared Goff's safety valve. That's his woogie. That's his comfort blanket. And he's been so good, not just in the passing game, but in the run game as well for the Detroit Lions. I just hate for that to be how they enter the playoffs.
Right. My first down, Philadelphia. Has there been a worse slide? Yes, I know that Jacksonville slid. I know that Miami slid. But no team went from number 1 in the entire NFL, the returning NFC champions. Your eyes are square on a Super Bowl, to now they're talking about firing your head coach The year after he took you to a Super Bowl, a year where at one point you were 10-1, and you lose to the New York Giants. Absolutely horrific. The skid that Philadelphia is on. I don't even know if they'll win a playoff game.
My second down is piggybacking off of that.
No cap.
The Eagles are really bad, and it's actually the 5th worst point differential by a team with 11 or more wins in NFL history. Since week 13 of the regular season, they have trailed in more game time than weeks 1 through 12 combined. It hasn't just been a fluke. They've just been getting their teeth kicked in this back half of the season. And you can't look any worse than what the Eagles have looked these final 5 weeks of the regular season. That's my second down.
My second down, I am going to Arthur Smith. Not only did you lose, not only did Jameis Winston run a fake knee to score a touchdown, and then you cried like a little bitch on TV. If you don't like them scoring, stop them. Then you lost your job, and you lost your job at 12:01, which tells me everybody knew you were getting fired.
Yep.
They just had to wait until they could legally fire you on Black Monday. Down to Arthur Smith. The way you coach that team, I don't even know if they'll give you another opportunity. You're going to have to go through a lot of rehab as an OC to get an opportunity back as a head guy. Down.
My final down is look no further than this coaching carousel that we have going on right now. The fact that the Tennessee Titans fired Mike Vrabel today because they didn't want to drag out a potential trade for him is idiocy. It's a lunacy. It's stupidity. And you do not have a better option available than Mike Vrabel right now, because we went through this. It is not better than the Chargers job. It is not better than the Falcons job. It is debatable whether it is better than the Washington Commanders job right now. It's better than the Carolina Panthers just based on David Tepper being a meddling owner.
That's the only reason it's better too.
But you can even look at it and make an argument that it's not a better job than what the Las Vegas Raiders are going into, because of the fact that the 3 other teams in that division are on the upswing and you are on the downswing. Meanwhile, the Raiders, they know their lot in life. They're behind the Kansas City Chiefs, but the Kansas City Chiefs have shown their warts. The Chargers have not been able to get up off the mat, and they'll probably make a stupid hire, but it's still a roster that's stacked. The Tennessee Titans, what are you thinking? That's my down number 3.
They basically took the direction of, I guess I'll just go ahead and watch this terrible show because the remote is over there and I don't feel like getting up.
Go ahead.
Which is kind of relatable.
That is relatable.
It's super
We've
dumb.
all been there.
It's relatable.
We live in that world.
That's how I got into Impractical Jokers.
But I don't run an NFL franchise. That's kind of the sticking point.
That is fair. That is true. Unfortunately,
Don't let
Russ,
facts get in the way.
You are linked to my third down because I'm going to talk about your Jacksonville Jaguars.
Ugh.
I know that injury issues reared
brutal, dude.
their ugly head. But to fall and to skid in the last game of the season, you still had a chance. The only thing going for that Tennessee team was, one, Mike Vrabel was their coach, but also Derrick Henry, if he could kind of maybe turn back the clock one last time, that's the only way they have a chance to beat you, and you let him turn back the clock one last time for 153, and you are unable to get the job done and win and get into the playoffs after such a promising start to your year. Not only did you not win your division, when you were a sleeper at the beginning of the year for a lot of people when they were trying to look smart and pick someone to win a championship not named the Kansas City Chiefs or the Philadelphia Eagles, to fall and skid until you are not in the playoffs anymore, not even as a wild card. You get my last down of the year.
Carnage in the streets.
What are we talking about?
I wonder how hurt Trevor Lawrence was, though, too, those last handful of games.
And that's why they got the last down, because there are true injury issues. An AC joint separation is not an easy thing to come back from.
Not when you're a quarterback, when you got to throw the football.
Has he tried underhand?
Ooh.
It works well for softball players.
People are wondering.
Call Jenny Finch?
People are wondering. Take the league by storm. I feel like throwing out of the pocket may be a little tough. Underhand. Throwing over the lineman may be a little tough.
A lot of rollouts.
All right. Let's go back.
College football.
The national championship last night saw the Michigan Wolverines crowned champions of the FBS. Now, hate watching was at a premium last night. Did Michael Penix lose his draft stock? Huh? Next on The Fan.
By George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
On 1080 The Fan.
Never see you believing up to your dreams, and suddenly you're finding out the facts of life.
Penix looks the other direction down a seam. It's intercepted by Sainristil. Mikey Sainristil has a couple of blockers. A convoy. Michigan set up inside the 10. Mikey Sainristil.
The second of two interceptions for Michael Penix Jr. in the national championship game as Sainristil sealed the deal for the Michigan Wolverines on that interception return to seal the 34-13 victory for Michigan over the Washington Huskies in the college football playoff championship game. And, I found it very interesting that a lot of people were knocking Michael Penix Jr. during that game and after that game as his NFL prospects dwindled in some people's minds because of that performance alone. It was not Michael Penix's best game.
No.
It was probably his worst game of the year for being, that Oregon State game was
the Arizona State game.
The Arizona State game was bad. He didn't play particularly well in the Washington State game. But in all of those other games, he made the throws when they needed him the most. Right? And he got beat up in that game. And if you are talking, and this is something that I talked about at the beginning of the week, last week rather, Penix in his NFL draft stock, I found it very fascinating that he was behind J.J. McCarthy in some people's draft boards.
In a lot of really smart, trusted, respected people's draft boards. And it wasn't just like an age thing. It was... There's a belief.
Or a durability thing.
There's a belief on the East Coast that J.J. McCarthy is asked to only do what the system asked him to do at Michigan. And that if you had seen him at another school, he would have flourished much more than what he did at Michigan.
And I don't think that J.J. McCarthy, like the system that he played in, is an indictment on him and that he won't have a stable NFL career because he played in an NFL-style system where he was asked to make reads like some NFL quarterbacks do. Some NFL quarterbacks do in a limited sense. But at the same time, like Penix, I can see that if your knocks on Michael Penix Jr., that he is throwing to the best receiving core in the country.
Right.
I get that because we have seen that. And we have seen in the evaluation process guys get burnt based off of, throwing to open receivers. Penix has shown us that he can make big time throws.
He can make every throw that's out there. The other big knock
with pinpoint accuracy. But I think what highlighted last night though, is that was the first time he got touched up for 60 minutes.
Right.
And he did not respond well to that. And if that in the NFL, that will happen to you. That will happen to you every damn week. Mm-hmm. And you saw the throws that he was making. And he was making great throws with pressure throughout the course of the year. And I don't want my comment to get misconstrued with that. He did make throws under pressure with pinpoint accuracy over the course of the season. But last night, you saw the mental clock was ticking. The mental clock was ticking faster. And he was not responding well to that in delivering throws that you must make in the National Football League.
Right.
And he was unable to do it last night. If that is going to be the knock, then sure. But then there is this growth and development as you grow in the National Football League to say, hey, who's to say that Michael Penix isn't going to make the throws he was making earlier in the year any other week as he grows in his future team? Last night was a perfect storm for him. It didn't go well for him, even though he did make some really good throws. And I think the Dunze one with that miscommunication, it wasn't a terrible throw. He missed his guy who was wide open. His receiver should have taken it outside a little bit more. And Dunze admitted as much after the game.
Right. Well, also if Dunze doesn't trip on that play, it doesn't even matter. We don't even talk about it. We just, oh, wow, that was a little more back shoulder than anything. I think what you see with Michael Penix is a true issue that we have right now in how we judge quarterbacks, how we judge teams. It's such a recency bias issue. Look at his 2 playoff games. After the Texas game, people were saying that he should have won the Heisman. He was that good.
He was.
He was so good in a Sugar Bowl against Texas that they should have ripped the Heisman Trophy out of Jaden Daniels' hands and given it to Michael Penix. That's what real analysts were saying. And now after this Michigan game, where he looked human for the first time.
He did not look good last night.
All year in a big game, right? This was the first time in a big game all year that we saw him miss guys. And it was largely because of pressure that was put on him that he hadn't faced all year because his offensive line was getting beat consistently for the first time all year long.
Up the middle and on the edge.
And now everyone's saying that Michael Penix, his draft stock has dropped. I think that draft end of April, beginning of May. When we get to that point, Michael Penix is going to be right where he should have been all along. He is a quarterback that when he is able to stand in the pocket and he can deliver on time, he can make every throw, and he knows how to move the safeties with his eyes. He knows how to be a leader. He knows when to call his own number, and he knows when to call the number for another player, because that's what the defense is giving him. But he is going to run into durability issues. He got touched up in 2 games this year. He got touched up in the second half of that first Oregon game against UW, and he got touched up against Michigan. And in both of those games, what did you see him doing when he was leaving the field? He was grabbing his midsection because he got hurt. He's already got 2 shoulder injuries and 2 big-time knee injuries. Those are going to be the reasons that he drops. He's not going to drop because he struggled against Michigan. He's going to drop because teams are worried, can he take a hit?
And last night, he did not respond well to those hits. And that was, it was the key factor in the game for me was the D tackles against the interior offensive line for Washington. And those guys dominated, and Penix looked uncomfortable. They looked uncomfortable.
He looked scared.
And I do believe that if you are any of these West Coast teams that are entering the Big Ten, I think the one thing that you're looking at is, all right, the top of the Big Ten is made up front and in the trenches. Even Iowa, which cannot
Iowa
play offense, but that needs to be bolstered in a big way at UW. UW is going to be losing a lot from this roster. They feel confident in what they're returning, but I think if you look at what Oregon has been growing, what they're trying to kind of continue to bolster through the portal at this point, everything has been focused on the interior of the defensive line. And that is where that game was won last night and where it was lost for UW. And that is what the challenge is going to be for USC, which has no depth there. UCLA, which has no depth there moving forward. And then what Washington has to continue to bolster, because if you look at it, Washington has a lot that they need to replace. We could take a quick look at that and how special it was to see both Washington and Michigan next on The Fan.
This is a Wild Card Week edition of Danny and Dusty.
Brought to you by George McCoy at WarrenAllen.com.
Now, from the Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk, a Sports Center update on 1080 The Fan.
This update brought to you by Big's Chicken. Try their smoked and fried wings tossed with a perfect dry rub and served with a killer trio of sauces online at bigschicken.com. First on The Fan, Black Monday in the NFL has bled into Black Tuesday. The Titans have fired head coach Mike Vrabel after 6 seasons. Vrabel led Tennessee to winning records in each of his first 4 seasons, including 3 playoff berths and Coach of the Year honors for the 2021 campaign. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin says TJ Watt is out Sunday at the Bills due to a knee injury suffered Saturday against the Ravens. Tomlin also said Mason Rudolph will start under center after leading the team to 3 straight wins. In college ball, the final AP Top 25 ranking of the season, Oregon finishes tied for 6th with Florida State. Michigan, Washington, Texas, Georgia, and Alabama are your top 5. Arizona finishes at number 11, and Oregon State fell out of the rankings altogether. One other note from college football, Washington receiver Jalen Polk has announced he is leaving school to enter the NFL draft. The Trailblazers are back on the court this afternoon facing the Knicks at Madison Square Garden. 4:30 tip on Root Sports Plus. Matisse Thybulle, Jabari Walker are questionable. DeAndre Ayton is doubtful. The Blazers are 12.5-point dogs. An MRI on Pacers guard Tyrese Halliburton showed a left hamstring strain. Halliburton will be reevaluated following Indiana's upcoming road trip, which wraps up January 21st in Phoenix. And Warriors guard Chris Paul will be reevaluated in 3 weeks after having surgery on his fractured hand yesterday. More sports scores and stories in 30 minutes. I'm Jeff Rust at Spirit Mountain Casino Sports Desk. Get to Spirit Mountain Casino Sportsbook, powered by BetMGM for all the pro football postseason action. Visit SpiritMountain.com.
Daily Boost is the podcast for in-depth analysis on the sports betting landscape. Listen on Odyssey or wherever you get your podcasts.
saying, well, usually we start spring ball and Valentine's Day in February. We're going to have to bump that back a month. He is a football psycho.
Who starts it at Valentine's Day? I guess there's semesters. There's semesters. That makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
We were quarters. We started in April.
Well, yeah, most schools will bump it back a little bit longer to, I don't know, get healthy and take a break. But Jim Harbaugh's a little bit different. He wants to get that thing done.
Well, Valentine's Day Massacre is like the best thing that we did at Central. I loved it.
Your psycho workouts on Valentine's Day?
Yeah, they'd call in the National Guard.
Well, Harbaugh loves football. Russ, do we still have the McElroy audio in the system somewhere?
Let me take a look for it here.
Yeah, it's not on the board. I think that we need to play this because of Greg McElroy, ESPN. He on his podcast.
Former Alabama
quarterback, yeah.
People forget.
He went on his podcast and he told a story of running into Jim Harbaugh. And this man is like Jim Harbaugh. I believe this. I think he will go to the NFL. And if you're wondering, the next Chargers head coach, he has 2 to 3 odds, which means he's minus 150 to be the next head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers.
Makes sense.
Okay. He has 6 to 1 odds to be the Commanders' next head coach, which is the 3rd best odds. I think those are the 2 jobs that he's on the board. Oh, no, Titans head coach, he's 7 to 1 odds. Okay. There is a belief in NFL circles that he will be going to the NFL. And I said this a few weeks ago, and it's something that a theory that I flippantly threw out, but I believe it in that I think that Harbaugh wanted to tackle the mountain of becoming a national championship coach in college. Mm-hmm. He will go to the NFL and he will become the head coach in the NFL. He wants to win a Super Bowl, which he was damn close to doing as the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. Mm-hmm. And then at that point, he will retire and he will go to high school football and he will coach high school football till he literally dies on the sidelines, winning state championships at the high school level. And he will go down as the greatest football coach ever by winning a Super Bowl, a college football national championship, and multiple high school championships. This is who he is. And this was solidified even more when Greg McElroy shared this story.
A personal anecdote with Jim Harbaugh. I remember seeing him at the Big Ten Media Days. It's probably 2015 or 16. And Jim Harbaugh approached me and said, "Oh, so Greg, you're done playing, huh? You're not playing anymore." I said, "No, Coach. I decided to kind of move into this world, and I've enjoyed it a lot. I love college football. It's great to be back and working in the world that I'm working in, and it's not quite as hands-on as coaching. I have a little bit more flexibility and things like that." And he basically looked at me and as dry and as direct as you can possibly be, and he said, "Oh, you don't love football?" I'm like, "No, I love football. I love it. I mean, football is amazing, Coach. I work in football. Like I'm a broadcaster, but I work in football." And he said, "Well, no. You love football if you play football, and when you're done playing and you can no longer play, then you coach. And if you don't coach, then you die." I'm like, "Well," So that he is all ball. He is all about ball. You play as long as you can, you coach as long as you can, then you die. That's Jim Harbaugh.
The Bear Bryant method.
That will be Jim Harbaugh.
He will die on the sideline. He wants to die on the sideline. His perfect version of death is winning the Super Bowl, keeling over, and dying of a heart attack because he's so excited that they won.
I think he wants the Infinity Stones, which is rings at every level. I think Harbaugh's going to do it too. I think he's going to do it. So there is a lot of smoke now, and I like the way he handled it last night because he was in the media. There are people somebody had to ask the question, whatever. But I love the way he handled it. Where like, can I at least just have tonight?
Yeah.
Can I at least have tonight, and I can celebrate this, and then I know those questions are going to be asked, but he climbed the mountain at Michigan. Like, what more did he need to do after the position that Michigan was in? And just think about where Michigan football was.
If you take the cheating scandal out of this year, think about how great that story is.
I think the story for them, the people, Michigan people, it is untarnished still.
A former player comes back to his alma mater after they've just been bludgeoned by their most hated rival that has risen to a level of football supremacy where you're talking about them, where it's Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson as the best for the last 15 years in college football. And he builds it with a bunch of underappreciated guys, a bunch of 3-star kids, a couple 4-star kids. He builds it. And after taking his lumps against Ohio State year after year after year after year, finally getting his right guys to beat them. And then he loses in the playoffs. And then he finally comes back the next year. And then he loses in the playoffs, but this time they were favored. But then he comes back and just constantly getting beaten down and beaten down and beaten down. I think if you're a Michigan fan, this is the greatest story that they ever could have.
Well, yeah, you go through the Rich Rod years where you bring in a new style, a non-Michigan man. You bring him in to run the program. Then you go and you get Brady Hoke, and you go through Brady Hoke falling asleep, and they go 5-7. But then he comes back. But I think we all forget like how close Harbaugh was to getting fired.
They wanted to run him out of town in 2020. If they would have lost in 2021 to Ohio State, he probably gets canned.
Well, if they would have lost, if that game, because remember, they were supposed to play the big game against Ohio State, and it got canceled due to COVID.
Yeah, and if it doesn't, he might be fired.
If they lose that game, they were 2-4 during the COVID year.
They lost to Michael Penix at Indiana.
If they lose that game, then he probably gets fired after 2020 because they would have gotten embarrassed by Ohio State. But that game got canceled, and then they never looked back after the 2020 season. They went 12-2, 13-1, 15-0. I mean, that is an incredible run by any measure in college football. That's 40-3. That's 40-3 in 3 seasons of football. That's incredible.
J.J. McCarthy went 27-1 as their starting quarterback.
Nuts. And it's just like, this is why nobody wants patience. Nobody has patience, but patience matters, right? And like maybe Ohio State learns this lesson with Ryan Day. Maybe you are a little bit more patient with him. Nobody wants to have that patience, but there have been some pretty big warts that Ohio State has proven to show over the last year or two. But they had that little bit of patience with Jim Harbaugh, and it paid off with the national title last night against Washington. It is a pretty incredible story and an incredible run, but he's climbed that mountain. What else does he have to prove there? Hand it off to Jesse Minter, their defensive coordinator,
or Moore, the O-line coach,
Sharon Moore, the offensive line or offensive coordinator. Yeah, why not? Like if he feels that he has a guy or two there, hand that program off, go to the NFL, and leave Michigan better than what you found it, and you can always go back being, the hero son of Michigan football.
Well, I think this is the smart thing that I've learned. Always go out on top. If you go out on top, if you go out like Jordan and you go out on top, they won't remember all the failures. They will remember you at the peak, at the pinnacle.
Yep.
The smartest thing that you can do is go out on top. And if I'm Jim Harbaugh, go out on top. And then pick your poison between if you want to go to Atlanta, Washington, or LA. You can go be a Chargers coach. You pick which spot you like the most, where you get the most control of that franchise. And go win.
It sounds like Matt Eberflus is safe in Chicago, and they're going to fire just everybody else. But,
sorry, Matt Eberflus?
No, sorry, Dweeberflus.
Thank you.
But he has this pick now where franchises that he played for. He played for Chicago. He played for Indianapolis. He played for the Chargers.
Oh, he could do it again.
He could go to LA, and he could go back to a place that he played and win a championship again. That'd be absolutely bananas. 503-864-6326.
Who's got it better than him?
Nobody. That is Vancouver Ford text line. Danny and Dusty on the Fan. think the portal has been great. I think NIL has been really good for college football. I know that some people disagree, but what I find very fascinating about this is that NIL made it possible for these teams to hold on to some of their guys and hold on to their roster, so guys didn't go to the NFL,
right?
And they stuck around. In the COVID year that a lot of these guys got, some guys came back. You know, you had Mike Barrett, the linebacker for Michigan, was a 6th-year guy coming back. You had several guys, and like Washington's plan in NIL was to keep the roster that they had already intact instead of paying high school kids, right? It was really good, and I think that there is a blueprint to success in that, where if you can hold on to those guys and say, hey, we'll get you a little bit of cash to stick around and maybe don't take that flyer on you, you can have these special runs where your roster isn't pillaged by guys leaving early for the draft and chasing money that may not be there.
Right, but you're also not going to get the Caleb Williams of the world. You're not going to hold on to the Marvin Harrison Jr.'s of the world. This works for a guy like Blake Corum. This works for a guy like Roman Wilson, where you can throw some more money at him. Because they know that they are a day 3 NFL draft pick. And that's not a knock on Corum. That's not a knock on Wilson. They may still end up being great NFL players.
Sure.
But they're not guys who are going to get 5-year deals, right, in their rookie contract. They're not going to get the big 4-year deal. They're not going to get the big signing bonus. So this does work, but I think it works with the non-star. Like, there's obviously stars of college football, but they're non-NFL rookie stars right off the get.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to understand who you're doing it with.
It was cool to see, though, and this wasn't. It's a lot of has been made of this, that these rosters being littered by 5-star guys in the past, and only 2 5-stars for Michigan. Let's not get it twisted, though. There was still a really talented roster.
Yeah,
you can't. How
many 5-stars are there every year? Like 10 to 20?
No, I saw it. There's their 2 5-stars that they had were J.J. McCarthy and Blake Corum. Pretty good. They only started 1 3-star guy, and he was on the offensive line, and he was first team All Big Ten. No, they were still all very highly touted guys coming out of high school. They were just not in that top 5 profile of recruiters. You still need a lot of talent to win and win at the highest levels. All right, something to keep an eye on. Apparently, Joe Shad now covers the Dolphins, former college football reporter. He's reporting Tyreek Hill dealing with ankle and quad issues with the Dolphins as they get ready for a game